Kia ora, my name's Liz. And
And kia ora, I'm Jan. Hi.
And Jan is a retired clinical psychologist and an Eskdale resident, and I am a certified life coach, and I live in Taranaki. And just to sort of put it out there as to what we're doing and what we're creating, we're super keen to get more tools and resources out to people in Hawke's Bay. I came over for a couple of weeks volunteering in April, and felt really drawn to continue to support the area as how I could from the other side of the country till I can get back. So that's where we're at, and today we're looking at navigating the unknown, the different stories that we're hearing. There's a lot of limbo out there at the moment, and whether it's zoning, whether it's insurance, whether it's waiting for rentals, whatever it might be. A lot of that struggle with people can't move forward because they don't know what's going on or where to spend their money or whatever it might be. And then, that's just the cyclone stuff, let alone whatever else people may have had going on in their world before as well. So, Jan, where should we start? Do you want to start with some tips or?
Okay, I think I'm just going to start by acknowledging that there is nothing harder than dealing with the unknown, because most of us feel safer if we can make a plan and we know what's going to happen, and we have some control over what's happening in our lives. That helps us to feel safer, and that's just been blown out of the water for so many people that have been through Cyclone Gabrielle. So starting off with an unprecedented weather event, which was just truly horrifying, and wasn't really well predicted. It's, we knew that there was going to be heavy rain, but it's almost like it crept up on us. The river crept up on us, and many of us had no idea until it was too late to do anything. So that already put people into a position of feeling like, I don't have control over this. This is just happening to me, and I have to find a way to get through it. So there's that. And then people dealt with that in their different ways in the immediate aftermath, and we've made some videos about that are on your website. And now what we've got is people who are feeling like they're in limbo, that they don't know what's going to happen to them. They don't know whether they are going to be able to rebuild their home or not. Some really want to, some don't. They just want to be let out so that they can find a way to get on with their lives. And for everybody, they're waiting for answers. Now, the hard thing about that is it's so complicated. There are so many different agencies involved. And I think it must have been really distressing for people who were told, we're going to get onto this really fast. We've learned from Christchurch. We're going to have an answer by the end of April. I think it might have even been the beginning of April at one stage. But actually it turns out to be more complicated than that, and things are slow. So then people are now in a protracted period of time where they still don't know what their future is or how to make something happen for themselves. So I'm just going to take a little break and let you say something there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you're absolutely what you're saying at the beginning around it is so hard, that unknown, and whether it's we're waiting for a diagnosis or we're waiting to hear back from a job or whatever it is, that unknown part of it, it is one of the hardest things to navigate because you just can't move forward.
No.
You can't take any step in terms of and especially with obviously something that we can't control, and that's unknown, and obviously something as devastating as a cyclone in the mix as well. So where can we start, Jan? What's the main sort of message that you feel in with all these things that people can't control at the moment? What would you say would be a starting place?
Okay, well, I think the starting place, and it doesn't matter, is the serenity prayer. And so it starts off with God, but that could be anybody, in my opinion. But the serenity prayer says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that's a really good starting point, is trying to find some acceptance for the fact that there are things that we don't have control over, no matter how much we would like to have control over them. And I think people can then get into a real anxiety state by trying to control something that's actually not controllable. And our minds and our bodies then kind of rev each other up. So when we get anxious thoughts and feelings and we can't let go of those, our body gets upset and gets involved. And then because we're having things going on in our body, our mind is even more convinced that this is a really big danger if we can't find a way to get control over it. And so now we're in kind of like a vicious cycle. So I think that really what we're faced with doing, the only thing we can do is to try and find a way to get our mind out of the worry whirl and take some times out and think about what can I control, what can I do, and what can I not control and not do right now. So one of the things that I thought might be useful is for people to make a little daily or weekly list with what are things I can do something about today or I can change, and what are the things that I'm not able to do anything about right now. So things I can do something about, it might be making some phone calls or sending some emails to the insurance company or to EQC. What can I not do anything about? I can't control how quickly they reply to me. So, and that's just like one example. Insurance companies, EQC, councils, government, local government. It's just that there are so many layers of that there. So I think it is about us finding a way to know and reassure ourselves that there are some things we can do something about, and there are some things that we are going to stay out of our control for a while. And so then the next bit is how we cope with that. So I'll just leave that with you for a minute again, see if you want to say anything.
Absolutely. And I think, good old pen and paper, when we can actually get this stuff out of our heads and down in front of us, then that can stop, and we'll talk more about this, but it can help with that mind that's, worrying and overthinking and keeping us awake at night and whatever it might be. And I saw a beautiful thing the other day where, with those two lists that you're talking about, all the things that we can control, all the things that we can't, and then taking that, all the things that we can't, screwing it up and burning it, type thing. And some of that active can help people let go of some of the worry. Again, it's not letting go of the issue, and we've still got to navigate that. But just when we think about how much energy can be taken up with worry, anxiety, and it's like, actually, how can I, in the Serenity Prayer, it talks about that acceptance. How can I park that and fuel that energy that I've got, or preserve that energy that I've got, into some of the things that I can do something about? Yeah.
So we need to give our minds a break, for one thing. So that's where things like grounding exercises, breathing exercises, mindfulness exercises can all be helpful, because what those things do is they get us to focus our whole mind on a single thing for a little while. Could only be 2 minutes. 2 minutes is good. 5 minutes is better. 2 minutes is good. And it's just giving our mind a break from the worry whirl. So, and as we do that more, it becomes more practiced and we get better at popping back into it. So when we notice that our mind is going off on one, we can just think, okay, I'm giving myself a little time out. So shall I talk a little bit about what those things mean in practical terms?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
What does that look like? Yeah.
Okay, so grounding is great and pretty easy to do. So what it means is that we are focusing our mind on what's coming in through our senses. So a good thing to do is sit somewhere quiet if you can, but you can do these things even in noisy environments if you need to. That's still quite doable. And so first of all, with your eyes, look around and notice everything that you can see, but notice it in much more detail than you normally would. So you're not just looking at the clock on the wall, you're looking at the colour of the wall, the shape of the clock, how the arms are moving, how fast or slow that is. If I look out my window now, I can look out to Bluff Hill and Napier, but I can see much more of that. I can notice the colour of the water, I can notice the shape of the clouds, the colour of the sky. So it's just really intensely noticing. And then the next one I love because it's so much more powerful than we realise, and that is what we can hear. And if you possibly can, if you're in a place where you can, it's really good to close your eyes for that one and to really listen, just focus on what you can hear. And it's amazing what you can hear when you do that you just didn't even notice before. So I can hear the ocean. It could be the ticking of a clock. When I used to do this with clients in a clinic, we could suddenly hear a little murmur of conversation in other places that we were totally unaware of.
I got going on.
Yeah. So that's a really nice one to do. Then there's smell. What can we smell? And for some people, they might actually spray a favourite perfume or get a little bit of essential oil, something that they find calming and they can focus on. And taste, is there anything that I can taste? Might be the coffee I had not so long ago or whatever. And the other one is, what can I feel? And so a good thing to do with grounding also is to be aware of what our hands and feet are doing. So pressing our hands together, pressing our feet down into the floor. I like to notice my bottom on the chair and really feel gravity pulling me down into the chair and my feet into the ground. And that actually starts to relax the muscles in our body as we just imagine ourselves being pulled down by gravity and held by the earth, really. We could also notice then, if we're outside, we might notice the temperature of the air. There might be sun on our skin or wind, our clothes against our skin, a ring or jewellery, just whatever. So in doing that, what we're doing is giving our mind a rest from the worry whirl, because now it's just we're focusing on everything that's coming in through our senses, and in doing that, we bring ourselves back into our body. Because when we go on a worry whirl, we kind of whirl off into the ether somewhere sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's grounding.
Awesome.
Now breathing. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to give an example. It may not be grounding, but that idea of giving the brain a bit of a break. When I was over in Hawke's Bay, I went to an event at Itapu School, and the presenter did an exercise of where we had to stand up with a partner, person sitting next to us, and do the hand slaps game. So person had the hands out, the other person had to try and slap them. And we did that for a couple of minutes, and there was laughter and all the rest of it, and we sat down again wondering what's that got to do with resilience. It was great. He said for those 2 minutes you weren't thinking about the cyclone, you weren't thinking about the devastation. And so that really important point of, yes, the mindfulness to bring us back to our body, but also, you know, what are some of those things, you know, whether it's catching up with friends or whether it's team sport or whether it's create something creative, that actually we can give that poor brain some rest,
a bit of a break,
focused in where we are at for that wee while.
Yeah. So the next one, which is really useful to do, is breathing. And now we all breathe, and I did used to work with a guy when I was working in the prison. This is quite a funny story, because he'd say, and don't try to get me doing that breathing. I know how to effing breathe. If I didn't know how to effing breathe, I'd be effing dead, wouldn't I? So I said, yeah, okay. So that was all right. I did get him to do some breathing with me a bit later, but I left it a while before I tried again. Anyway, the thing about breathing is that the more anxious or stressed we get, the faster we breathe, right? So our breath starts coming up in the top of our chest, and our breathing rate goes up and our heart rate goes up. Now, we can do the opposite. If we can slow our breathing down and we can get our breath to go right down into our abdomen, we actually slow down our heart rate, and we bring calmness to our body through working with the vagus nerve, which plays a very big part in so many things. So it's not nothing. It's easy, and it's something that most people can do. So the easiest part of that is doing counted breathing. So maybe breathing into the count of 6, holding for say 4, and then breathing out for 7 or even 8. So it works better if you can make your out breath longer than your in breath. Honestly, it's amazing how this slows down people's breathing rate. And I've done little experiments with people where we've measured how many breaths in a minute. We've done that for a minute, and then we've measured how many breaths again, and they can bring it down from like 25 to 12, which is big. If you look at a baby breathing, you'll see that their abdomen is rising and falling. And as we get older, we forget how to do that naturally. And we start doing this breathing, which is much higher up. So when you're doing your in-breath, you want to try and just visualize that you're filling your body with this breath. And you may even want to give it a color so that you can kind of visualize it going, surging everywhere and bringing calmness. And when you breathe out, you want to do it so gently that if I was holding a lighted candle in front of your mouth, you would not blow it out. And that will just slow down your out breath. And slowly as that breath goes down, you can notice your shoulders start to drop and your muscles start to relax. So again, that's something very simple, but very useful.
Absolutely. And I think that's really key. The simplicity of these tools, and that, a lot of them we can do wherever we're at, in the middle of whatever's going on.
Yes.
And I noticed the difference with that sort of breathing within a couple of breaths. Things start to drop and calm. So whether it is anxiety, whether it's navigating the unknown, whether it's stress, overwhelm, whatever it is, absolutely, those ones are great tools to calm that nervous system.
Yeah. And the other thing about mindfulness is that it doesn't mean we need to sit and sort of meditate on a word or anything like that. Mindfulness is just being in the moment, because when we're worried and anxious, we're either in the future or we're in the past. We're not here in this moment right now, so we're missing all our present moments. And so anything that helps us just slow down and be in touch with something is mindfulness. So that could be sitting looking at the sea, if you like the sea. It could be being with nature in any way, or even imagining you are sitting in the bush and listening to the birds. It might be sitting in your backyard and listening to the birds. It might be putting your favourite music on and really letting yourself be in the music. So again, it's the same principle of giving your mind a rest and just letting it focus on something that is calming and not agitating.
And I think even, you know, for those with kids, actually getting on the floor and playing, you know, devices away, whether it's a game, whether it's something creative, and just focusing on that for that wee while, can help get us out of that worry place as well.
And you can do that. You can do this with children with something really fun, and it might be about a nice piece of food. So it might be a boiled lolly, or a grape, or a little piece of chocolate, and just sit with the children and just encourage them to really notice the taste, the texture. Have they got a bit of juice running down here or going down the back of their throat? Just actually focusing on that. So that's something that kids can be really good at doing this and really enjoy it as well.
Yeah, so I was being in a group once and we were given apricots to chew slowly, and that was quite an incredible experience for something so simple. When we can be so quick to rush everything. The difference of chewing an apricot 25 times. Can absolutely help. Awesome. And in terms of, so we've sort of focused on the mind. Any thoughts, Jan, about what if we feel we're carrying some of this uncertainty in our body, you know, maybe in pain, or some of that nervous system is triggered? Anything else around actually releasing some of that in sort of physical ways?
Yeah, so that can be different for different people too. So for some people, going for a brisk walk or a run, or chopping wood or stacking wood, whatever. So for some people, actually doing something that is really active will be helpful, and just using up some of those stress hormones and letting their bodies relax a bit. And for somebody else, it might be a relaxing bath with a handful of Epsom salts and some lavender oil, or getting yourself a massage, or sitting in the sun and just allowing your skin to absorb some vitamin D. You can have some sunscreen on so you don't have to worry about the sun. But just things that calm the body, because what calms the body calms the mind, and what calms the mind calms the body. So it's always working in both directions. And it's really useful if we can notice what's happening in our body, because what's happening in our body will tell us if we're in a state of stress and anxiety that we haven't noticed in our head, because that can happen sometimes.
Can you just share some of the sensations that people can look out for to notice from our body?
Okay. One of the things that I notice the most is my shoulders. So if I'm getting stressed or agitated, my shoulders are coming up higher and higher and higher. So one of the best things I learned, I think, when I was training to be a counsellor was drop your shoulders. And I just trained myself to notice, you know, every now and then check in with myself. What are my shoulders doing? And if I've got a sore neck or I'm getting headaches, that will tell me that I've got stress in my shoulders and my neck. So what's going on? Some people will be in their tummy, in their digestive system. So it's either like butterflies, or it's crampy pain, or it's feelings of nausea, because the digestive system is just not working happily, because the body is stressed and there are stress hormones around influencing it. Other people will notice that their fists or their arms are getting stressed, their muscles are tighter. And so doing anything to relax those things is going to be useful. So progressive muscle relaxation is another thing that can be helpful from that point of view. So I think a big thing is noticing what thoughts are getting away on us and what's happening in our body, and first noticing them, being aware of them. but with kindness to ourselves. So we mustn't, if we start criticizing ourselves and think we should be able to do better and we should have more control, we're just piling more stress and anxiety on ourselves. So hard though it is to do, we kind of have to find a way to let go of our struggle with control, our need to control. And I guess my thing where I love this is the most relaxing thing I can do, and it's kind of like totally letting go, is being in warm water on my back and just doing a starfish and just letting the water support me. So for me, that's like I'm in a moment where I'm just in complete relaxation, and it's quite nice. And other people will have different versions of that. Yeah. You said before about writing things down. So that's another really useful thing to do, because when we write things down, we're acknowledging them, we're naming them, and we're also starting to process them. So if we can write in a journal or a diary what thoughts and what feelings we're having, that will actually help us accept them, process them, and move on from them. And if they're ones we don't like that much, then what you said before about then burning them or destroying them in some way is a nice letting go little ritual to do. Just watch them go up in smoke, or float away, or get put down the shredder.
And I think, with some of those feelings and emotions, and then maybe it's also, letter writing, what is it that you want to say to the insurance company or the government or whoever else involved in this mix that, potentially wouldn't do you any favors if you did say it, or it's not appropriate or whatever it is. It's actually getting that out in some way and writing it down. You can turn the piece of paper over, write it all over again, write over the writing, so that you don't need to read it back, you don't need to see it. And then, again, in those same ways, getting rid of it, because, there's so much that, people may want to be saying, but just can't, or not appropriate, won't do them any favors. At least that way it can shift and make a real difference. And what you're talking about in terms of those releases, and knowing that physical stuff, that a walk, it's not just good for me, or I've got to chop the wood anyway. It's actually putting that intention into it or behind it. I'm going to this walk to release some of this stuff, or I'm going to prioritize chopping the wood because I've got all this energy right now and that needs to be shifted in some way. So having that intention as to behind some of our actions can be really helpful around that. And I think also around those sort of small steps, we can think, gosh, all this unknown and I don't know where to start. What are some of the small things that maybe we can look at, or small steps of self-care, or some of those small breathing moments, just bring all of that down a bit. And
I think about when we think about what we can do, so writing letters, emails, or making phone calls, one of the things that I thought could be useful is thinking about it as a polite nagging program or a polite nagging schedule. So one of the frustrations that people have talked to me about is that they've had information that if they do this, this and this, then boxes will be ticked and everything will be okay, but then it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen, and they've done everything they can, but still nothing's being done. And for one person being told repeatedly, you're in a queue, you just have to wait your turn, you just have to be patient. So I think that it's good to keep on reminding, and maybe having a scheduled nag for the insurance company or whoever it is, and think that every week I'm putting this in front of you again. I don't expect you to respond straight away. That's not in my control. But I know that I'm keeping on, just giving you a little push in a polite way. because of course the other thing is that we have to realise that the people on the other end are overwhelmed with huge amounts of work and are probably doing their very best to get through them, but they're overwhelmed too because it's just a huge amount to get through.
Awesome. And then possibly mainly lastly, in terms of, a lot of these things that I think we've talked about absolutely apply and help with kids in the different ways, whether it's the breathing, whether it's the mindful eating, whether it's going out to play, whether it's focusing on something creative. Jan, can you talk into, what anything else that parents can offer, and maybe just that importance of how, parents can show up, for their kids that are potentially going through this as well?
Yeah, I'm just going to close my door because a lovely councilman is mowing the lawn. I think what we talked about in one of our videos is, so there's two things that we can do with our kids, and one is, I guess, to role model for them that, gosh, this is really difficult and we don't have control over this, but kids, we're going to get through it. We'll be all right. There is a future, and we're gonna get there. And on the other hand, to sometimes be able to acknowledge sometimes this just feels too hard, and I feel like I'm overwhelmed, and I want to sit and have a cry. But that's okay, because we have our cry and we say how we feel, and then we think about what we can do, and then we'll just set about making another plan, and we'll do that. So then we're teaching children resilience in that thoughts and feelings will happen, and sometimes they're quite unpleasant. It's okay to express them. And it's also important to know that we can pick ourselves up and carry on. So nothing's forever. You could say in a way that our feelings and thoughts are like the weather. They come and they go. So nothing's there forever. Those clouds will pass. The sun will come out, but then the sun will go again. And whatever that weather might be. I'm very conscious at the moment of talking about rivers and rain. So I keep trying to find other ways to say it.
Yeah, but
that's triggering for some people.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's absolutely so true. And I've been speaking to a mum that very much felt they had to do the strong front for their kids. But I love that way of sharing where we're at in it together, and this is what we're going to try and do to get through this part. I think there's such gold, and as you say, such teaching resilience and teaching feelings, and feelings are okay, and all those messages can be in the mix.
The other thing that I thought was important, two things. One is for people who are feeling stuck and they can't move forward, is to actually allow themselves to consider what the alternatives are. Even if it's kind of crazy alternatives. So if what I want to happen doesn't happen, what can be my plan B, or what can be my plan C? And they can be a little bit mad and maybe not even all that doable, but the process of actually generating alternatives and other things that could happen should things not go exactly down the road we want them to go down, which could happen. So trying to think a bit more broadly. And I think the other thing that I really wanted to say that I think is important for us all is to notice little beautiful moments, little gems, when we can have a moment of joy, and allow ourselves to do that, because we can get into the habit of noticing the doom and the gloom and the bad things, and we can miss hearing the tuis sing in the trees, or looking at that rainbow that's just come up in the sky, or a moment when somebody was really kind or gave a nice smile. And I think it's really good if we can cultivate awareness of noticing that too, and so almost snapshotting it. So that we have a little moment of joy.
I love that. I often talk about gold in the chaos, and that's what you're talking about, spotting that gold. And yeah, it might be a split second, but yeah, we're wired to spot the negative to keep us out of danger and trials and everything that we go through. But yeah, if we can consciously, and again, great exercise with the kids, whether it's something at the dinner table or when you're out and about, you know, what's beautiful right now, you know, what's your favorite thing that you can see, what's the favorite thing that happened.
That's right.
Helps to rewire some of that brain.
That's right. And so that's something marvelous that parents can do for their children, is role modeling that and encouraging them to notice those little moments. Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. Any final word, Jan?
I think my final word is that life is that we can't control everything. And so we can't control what we can't control. And so letting go of our control strategies and focusing on the things that we can do something about. And even though it feels really uncomfortable and we can notice it's uncomfortable, trying to let go of the things we do to try and keep control over something that we can't control. Because while we're doing that, we're winding our minds up into worry and anxiety, and we just need to find ways to step away from it, and things will happen as they happen. We can plan what we can plan, and there are other things we can't do anything about, and worrying about them does not change the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, Jan. I love how you give us the wisdom, you give us the theory, and you give us the practical ideas and things in the mix as well. So yeah, thank you once again.